Actually, the show was born in 1990, and prior to that, I toured with a company called the African American Drama Company out of San Francisco. And they're part of that cadre of artists that I consider all of us being a part of edutainment. And we all, in our individual ways, support keeping Black history alive through the work that we do portraying historical figures. So I was with them probably for a good 3-4 years, and then I left the Bay Area and I moved to Los Angeles. And once I got to Los Angeles, it was really kind of interesting how this happened. One day I just happened to be walking down the street. I happened to notice in LA Times, and there was an article saying that they were receiving submissions for grants from individuals as well as organizations from the Department of Cultural Affairs with Los Angeles. And I thought, wow, this would be a great way for me to create my own vehicle now that I no longer live in the Bay Area. And also because I wanted to have my own vehicle as well. I had toured with them for a while. And so I submitted, and the deadline was really fast, so I had to really rush, get the application done, decide who I wanted to do it with if I got the grant. So I thought, okay, what population? Which population? Senior citizens. They're underserved, and they'll be the least critical. That's who I want. So I contacted 5 senior citizen centers. They all said, yes, if you get that grant, we'd love to have you come and perform your one-woman show here. And that's how it all began. I got the grant, I did the 5 shows. One of the women there was with an organization called the Eastern Star. She said, can you bring it to our organization? I took it there. Then somebody else said, can you bring it to such and such? And somebody, can you bring it here? So the next thing I knew, I was like, wow, this show is touring. And so now, fast forward 21 seasons, the show has now been to 40 states. I've been to your good state several times, more than several. And it's also been to 3 continents. So it's been, North America would be the US and the Caribbean, Africa, and also Europe. So my goal is to make it to all 50. I'm just trying to have enough gas to make it 10 more states. I got 10 more to go. I'm getting closer. In a sense, I do, in that I also have a writer's retreat for women, a literary retreat for women in Georgia, about 30 minutes south of the airport in Atlanta. So there are women who come through. In fact, that's how I met Amawe. A very close friend of hers came from Ghana to spend a week to work on her writing. And so in that sense, I'm a part of these women who are creating work, some of which is nonfiction, some is fiction, it's all kinds of work, but it's all literary. And I also co-founded the Los Angeles Women's Theater Festival. We're now in our 18th year. We produce solo artists from around the globe. And so we have all these artists who have wonderful stories that they're telling, many of which are their personal life stories. And I have a book that came out in December of '08 called On My Own Terms, One Actor's Journey, that chronicles my life as an artist starting at age 16. So all these things really kind of dovetail in a way, because they are all about entertainment on some level, or at least the literary world, which could translate into that. And they're all educational in different ways. So I've been very fortunate to be able to have my fingers in a lot of different pots. The first thing was to figure out which women did I want to portray. And so I began to think of all these different African American women who have contributed greatly to our society. I finally arrived at 7 that had, lived during different times. So one of the criteria for me was to choose women of different eras, women of different temperaments, women of different accomplishments, women that would just create this wonderfully rich tapestry that the one thing in common being that they all were able to achieve despite seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and at the same time women that were also very different in their persons. Zora Neale Hurston used to require more of me because once I added her to the show, originally there were 5 women, then I added 2. I added Zora and I added Angela Davis. Zora seemed to be so big, she was just taking over the show and required a lot more energy of me in a certain kind of way. But now she's kind of mellowed out, and so, yeah. She's fun because I get to play with her. I can be very playful. And even with Lorraine Hansberry, the playwright, there are sections where I portray her where she recounts a childhood game, so she gets to play a little bit too. So those 2 I get to play with the most. Yes, I want them to come away with several things, really. One of which is I want them to come away with a sense of wonder, a sense of knowing more about African American history, women particularly, and maybe being introduced to women that they've never even heard of, so that they are enlarged in terms of their knowledge of history, which is American history. So that's one thing I'd like for them to walk away with. I'd like for them also to walk away with a sense of inspiration. I remember when I performed at Kent State in Ohio, there was a student afterwards who was having a really hard time as a student. And she said, I was thinking about quitting school. She said, but after I looked at these 7 women and what they were able to overcome, what I'm talking about is just so insignificant. So you never know. So the show was an inspiration for her, and I'm hoping that she stayed in school like she said she was going to as a result of seeing the show and being inspired by these powerful women. So inspiration, enlightenment, knowledge. I just really want people to walk away feeling good about the many contributions that have been made in this country by many people. Probably Mary McLeod Bethune, the educator. She started school with $1.50, school for girls. She was a strong advocate of education. She had friends in high places, the Rockefellers, the singers, the ones who made the Singer sewing machine. And she was such a visionary, just an amazing woman. 15th of 17 children, the first to be born out of slavery. She and Mrs. Roosevelt, First Lady Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, were so close that they called her the Second Lady. Amazing, amazing woman. Well, the vision is to continue to produce solo artists from around the globe and allow women a place, a vehicle where they can tell their stories and empower them through their works. And we've now begun to have artists from around the world, as I said before, all the way from Holland. We've had 3 different pieces that have come from Holland, India, Canada, Russia, Brazil, just all over. So it's really become an international affair, which is exciting. And we do a lot of things. I mean, that's our crown jewel, is to produce the festival every March during Women's History Month. However, we also have served over 3,000 kids in the LA Unified School District, both in-school and after-school program. We have a cable TV show where our artists who have performed with us are able to come on and be interviewed. So we reach audiences in the comfort of their own homes and hopefully get them out to the theater after they've had a sense of what we do. And we provide workshops. We call them Wisdom Wednesdays, where artists can create their own solo shows. So we really have made a difference in that community. And when we came to be in 1993, we were the only annual solo festival for women in Los Angeles. So we're the oldest. Some have come and gone, but we've had staying power. We're small but mighty. I really don't see it as anything to have tension about at all. I think there's room for all of the work that's done in Los Angeles. Certainly Los Angeles is the entertainment capital of the world as it relates to film and television. At the same time, we have more theaters in Los Angeles than even in New York. Most people don't know that. A lot of very small theaters, like 45 seats and bigger. And so there's a lot of exciting work that's being done in Los Angeles, a lot of new work, a lot of solo work. So there's room for everybody in Los Angeles. And my myth when I got there was that theater was all fluffy, lightweight, had nothing to really say, that it was all television and film, and it's so untrue. Some of the best theater I've ever seen has been in Los Angeles. They are different worlds in the sense that they're three different disciplines, basically. You've got television, you've got film, you've got stage. In addition to that, I've been fortunate enough to even kind of branch off and do other things like audiobooks, voiceover work, commercials. So I've had my hand in many different aspects of the world of entertainment. And so they sort of, in some ways, dovetail because I'm still being an actor in whichever discipline I'm working. In terms of where I see myself going, I'd like to do more in the way as I now become more seasoned, more of a veteran, more mileage on me. I'm thinking that what I'd also like to do more of is lecturing. I'd like to be able to be on the circuit more as a speaker and perhaps write more. I began as a writer and I came back to writing with my book, so perhaps more in terms of writing now. When I was 16. I was in Project Upward Bound. I don't know if you guys have an Upward Bound program here or not, but it's a college preparatory program for disadvantaged youth. And it was at Chico State in Northern California near Sacramento. And we were able to take 2 electives every summer. It was a 3-summer program. So you went in summer after your sophomore year, junior year, senior year. And so I chose drama as an elective and played the Queen in The Ugly Duckling by A.A. Milne and thought, wow, what a powerful experience this is, playing a queen. And my mother was sitting in the front row and she was cheering and smiling and very proud. And that's how it all began. And it was non-traditional casting. My husband was Anglo with dark brown hair and our daughter was blonde, and her suitor was African American, darker in skin than me. So the way that I began was with a sense of anything was possible, that I could play any role, and that there were no limitations. Well, that didn't always turn out to be true in the real world, but it certainly was a wonderful way to start as an actor. There is just less work.
Yeah.
And in part it's because the powers that be are not risky enough to take bigger chances. And not allowing more writers to share their voices in terms of the works that they've created so that actors of different ethnicities have more of a shot in terms of the kinds of works that are green-lighted. I always wear lots of hats. I said to someone once that I was a juggler, and they said, "You do that too?" And I said, no, not that kind of juggling. No, I don't do that. But the point being that at any one time, I could be working on different things. So for example, I've now been preparing to come here to perform. At the same time, I've been working with my screening panel, going through all the submissions for those who want to get into Festival 2012. At the same time, I've been auditioning for different projects. I just got through working on this new series called Prime Suspect. So, I'm always doing more than one thing. And I'm glad that I am, and I'm glad that I see myself as someone who can do more than one thing, so I'm not waiting by the phone. There are many actors in Los Angeles. They do one thing, basically. They wait for the agents to call, to audition, to see if they can get the role. But in terms of empowering themselves as entrepreneurs, creating their own vehicles, many of them don't do that. I've always done that. So I've always worked because I've never had all of my eggs in one basket. First and foremost, train, train, train. Learn as much as you can while you're here from the classes that you have. Because here, in the academic setting, it's really a lab. So while they're in the laboratory, do everything you can to learn everything you can so that when you step out into the real world, you're prepared. And that also translates into read, read, read. Read autobiographies, read biographies, watch the Actor Studio, see those interviews that are on there with all those celebrities who have made it, and share what their life experiences have been. Just try to be a sponge and soak up as much as you possibly can and really get your chops together as much as possible so that when you are there in the real world, you're competitive and you're prepared. I would say probably 3 projects that have had the most weight for me have been, there was a movie called Little John, a Hallmark movie. Beautiful story. My biggest role ever. I had like 25 scenes, 4th billing. Ving Rhames played my brother. Beautiful family story, and Hallmark is just such a loving entity in terms of the work they do. You're likely to need your Kleenex, and the work is always family oriented. So that was one project. Erin Brockovich was another, because of the social and political implications and messages within the film. Working with Julia Roberts was a joy. She's a Southern girl, jeans, barefoot on the set, just playful with that great laugh of hers. But when they say action, she's ready. She's always ready, an absolute professional. Iron-Jawed Angels with Hilary Swank, because I got to portray a historical figure, Ida B. Wells, and we were on location in Richmond, Virginia. I got to go to Jamestown to see where slaves were brought in. So it's always nice when I'm on the road and I get to have my little side trips that relate to the work that I do, particularly with my one-woman show. And of course, Roseanne. I was on Roseanne for 5 seasons, the longest I've been on any series. And so that was a joy, something that began as a guest starring role. 1 episode turned into 5 seasons. So the lesson is, you never know what may happen. If the work is good, if they like your work, you may be called back. I really love the first version of A Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier. Wonderfully made film, just rich. And as a play itself, and I played Beneath in one production when I lived in the Bay Area, that's one of my all-time favorites. Very well done. And oddly, I like the movie Shawshank Redemption with Morgan Freeman. I've probably seen that movie more than any one movie. Every time, I'm still drawn into it because the work is just so good, and he's such an incredible actor. And even him in Driving Miss Daisy, that was very well done. He's a fine actor.
Great. Well, probably should get you over to another class here. But
all right.
thank you so much.
You're
It's
so
been
very
really
welcome.
lovely to talk to you.
My pleasure.
Great.
Thank you.